Guys, do you know how bad an idea has to be that all of the conferences get together and pass a rule about it within 48 hours? My goodness, that has to be a record.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good day, everybody. Welcome to Locked On Ole Miss. We're doing the Rebel Squad tonight, live streaming. The way this works, if you've never done this before, we're going to talk about some stuff at the beginning of it, and we're going to move to your comments at the end of it. We're going to talk a little bit about the practice stuff that went down with Pete Golding, but we have to start with the news of the day, and that is the SEC dropped the hammer down. Now, for anybody that's on this list that might be tuning in for the first time and don't know what's going on, LSU concocted a scheme to get former NFL players eligible back in college sports. They got a court in the Louisiana and Baton Rouge to okay it. According to Football Scoop today, there was some recruiting going on by the LSU people to let that happen. And they got Daquan Wright, former Rebel, that has a sterling reputation. I actually hate the fact that his legacy has been tarnished a good bit on that. And Xavion Harris, same thing there. And they were proceeding like it worked. Now, they also went out in basketball and got RJ and Luis. I think they've got 6 or 7 guys now for their basketball team. So they have been functioning over the last week or so like a rogue program. Stop us. And the SEC got together and met, and they did. And not only that, they got a unanimous 16-0 vote on this from everybody, which means LSU caved, which means that Greg Sankey put all the information out there with their legal team and let them know that, yeah, we're probably going to win this. So before we start this, let's read the rules real quick. I had ChatGPT go through and kind of modernize an SEC graphic of what's going on. It says college athletes, not former professional athletes, have been at the heart of the Southeastern Conference. Individuals that choose to leave athletics will not be permitted to return to college athletics. Allowing to that occur will blur the line, yada, 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 all of that stuff. That was the original release that the SEC put out. Today, it had a little bit of, I don't know, oomph behind it. The presidents gave Greg Sankey unprecedented control to handle this and govern this. And if a player that is NFL, NBA, that's an important distinction. G League, that's an important distinction. Any professional league that is basically lettered, Greg Sankey has the right to punish what's going on, including not allowing you to compete for championships and playoffs. You're fined for a bunch of money. You could be suspended, and players can be ruled ineligible. Daylan, the SEC, like I said earlier today, it was going to be slower because the patient zero in this whole process was an SEC member. But whenever they got it, my goodness, did they get it right.
Yeah, they did. And, honestly speaking, I don't think they could afford to not get it right and get it right on the first time. I think it was something that it was so pressurized from coaches, from athletic directors, and from other conferences as well, that when you kind of look at the foreseeable future of college football, the SEC kind of ranks amongst those things. But there's been so many changes over the last, half a decade in terms of what is the next correlation of what this sport is going to look like. When this news kind of all dropped, we're really thinking like, is this really going to happen? And from the perspective of we've seen so much happen just this year alone in the offseason in terms of players, grants and injunctions and, players getting suspended, et cetera, et cetera. I wholeheartedly believe that, a statement was going to be released by the conference, but I didn't think necessarily anything was going to happen. I thought, Daquan Wright and Xavier Harris were going to be able to go to LSU and no one was really going to say anything. And we were all just going to be mad, about how the sport we love and grew up loving and watching, blah, 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 was going down the hill, nothing was going to change. So for me, this is it's really a good piece of shocking information for me to see Greg Sankey actually stand up and do something, because wholeheartedly speaking, just knowing Greg Sankey and what he's been doing since he became the commissioner, I didn't see this coming, especially this quickly. And so props to him and to his team for understanding the situation at a fast pace, but also understanding it at a fast pace, but correctly deeming what is eligible and what is ineligible. Now, there are so many other things that have to be figured out from that perspective as well. And I'm glad you mentioned the basketball aspect, because Ole Miss is also going to kind of be affected in that aspect right now too.
They got a commitment today.
Yeah.
From somebody
from
that's
Corey
affected by
Stevenson,
this.
who was, had signed a pro contract and, committed today. So we'll see how that kind of situation unfolds for Spirit too.
He's ineligible.
Yeah, so,
ineligible.
And it's a big topic too, because this is something, I think collegiately we saw a little bit of different varieties in basketball last season as well. And I think, we get so caught up, obviously it's football season and football is the biggest thing and the moneymaker. We get so caught up in talking about that, which of course is the biggest talking point. But this also affects other sports just as immensely as it does college football as well. So I give my props to the SEC and Greg Sankey for doing this in a timely and efficient manner, especially right when the season starts. So we'll see what the reaction is from people, and if a pushback comes more from the LSU standpoint in terms of legal action and the players as well. So I'm just, really interested to see how this all unfolds over the next couple of days.
Tyler, one of the things that I look at whenever all of this happened was I felt down when I first heard it, because it felt like somebody was trying to take something away from me that I truly loved. And it wasn't something like, hey, my wife always bragged about when we first got together, she was going to make me watch football less, which is, looking back on it, it's hilarious. But this time it felt like they were going to fundamentally try to change something that I love immensely. And the fact that it didn't work, there was such a relief, to the point where, hey, we can get back to talking about football. Now, granted, tomorrow's show is going to be about this too, but then we can get back to talking football. But I'm just glad that the SEC had the stones to get this done.
Yeah, no doubt. And really hat tip to the Big Ten too. I think they laid out the perfect blueprint for the SEC to follow swiftly. And like Daylan, I kind of fully expected these guys to kind of be able to suit up seamlessly. And I was shocked that, that they're not, if you told me this yesterday, not only would I have been surprised that they're not playing, shocked at the speed of things too, with the statement that came out yesterday. Yeah, again, like Daylan said, I thought that was what it was all going to be. And now, kind of on, I guess, LSU media, you could say, their fans as well. Their reaction to this seems like the courts are going to be the next case. And where I'm kind of like, I don't know about that. LSU did agree to this in principle. So I'm not really sure how that's going to work now. And hey, I don't know if the players can really do anything either, because it's not like they can't play. There's just new rules with it. It just comes with an institutional penalty and coaching penalty as well, potentially. It's unfortunate for some of these guys, because in a way I do see what Lane's saying about, if they knew going into the offseason that they had another year, would they have declared to be professionals? It's hard for me to believe a guy like Daquan Wright wouldn't have done what he did. Xavier Harris with his injury, maybe a different story, but at the end of the day, those guys signed pro contracts, and I think the SEC is doing the right thing. Now, I think you can question Kiffin if he really was recruiting these guys to, follow the injunction. Like, that's not really a great look for him and, just the player-coach relationship, because now I don't know what these guys are really going to do next.
Well, let's talk about this real quick. LSU, are they on 4-win watch now? Because you just told your whole locker room that they're not good enough, and then it didn't work. And now you're going to try and tell them that they are good enough. This feels so much like 2022, but it's not happening November. It's happening before the season.
Right. Yeah. I think they're a really talented bunch. I think they knew that going into this. And I know Lane, they wanted to bolster the depth up a lot with those two additions, but at the end of the day, I think there's two different messages. What I heard from Texas, Georgia, Ole Miss, compared to kind of Lane trying to justify these things, and where those other three schools that I mentioned are very comfortable with where their roster was, and they're focused on that team. Now, if the situation arose where if they felt like the upgrades would have been worth it, or if there was an injury there and stuff like that, maybe we're having a different conversation. So I find that part interesting. I know, based on what we've heard at the mic behind, a little bit behind the scenes as well, Ole Miss really likes their team. So yeah, I think that is a great point. I wonder what that says about, to the LSU team internally and externally to the rest of us.
What do you think, Daylan?
Yeah, I think for me, that was kind of immediately when I saw the news yesterday was where my head kind of went to in terms of if I'm a player at LSU and I get if I say I'm Trey Green, I can get it. I'm an incredible tight end. I'm a great player, expected to be, probably a first round draft pick next year. But regardless of that matter, I'm not, maybe necessarily worried about my spot, but in terms of just a relationship standpoint, a connection, trying to fit in with the team, trying to bring this guy in, literally the season is about to start in less than 2 full weeks. That's for me, as if I'm a player on LSU, just kind of sits with me in a weird stance. And a guy that has just come into this system and, immediately it's like, here I am, your spot's gone. And the same thing with the defensive front. I'm not going to necessarily say that LSU obviously doesn't have some guys on the defensive front, but you would expect that that it went through. Xavier Harris was more than likely going to have an opportunity to start and play meaningful minutes for the Tigers. So I think from my perspective, that's what really kind of irked me about this situation, that these rosters are set. And these teams have gone through spring camp. They've went through the transfer portal. They've gone through at least the heart of fall camp at this point, and earned the conclusion of scouting, evaluating, putting their depth charts together. And now, as a player, you're like, I've done all my work and I've continued to bust my behind. And now this is very disrespectful to me. But I don't sit here and say I'm necessarily shocked by LSU deeming these players to be able to come to their university. Look, as much as we talk about Lane Kiffin, as much as people don't like about Lane, he had been talking about these problems within the NCAA for many, many years, dating back to my freshman year in 2022 in terms of the transfer portal, NIL, and all this other crap and how there were no rules. And yes, people would say, okay, if you're complaining about it, why are you using it better than anybody else? Well, it was a broken system that he continued to use to his benefit until someone finally said, let's come along and do something. So I think in this particular situation here, you hear him kind of going on the Pat McAfee show today and talk about these things. I think it's finally a stance where the NCAA and the SEC is just like, okay, you know what? I know there's a bunch of mess going on right now, but at some point we do have to put our foots down and draw the line. And this just kind of seemingly felt like that was the point at this point.
Yeah, it just kind of feels like with the Big Ten and the SEC acting so quickly and something that it would take the NCAA 3 weeks to do.
Yeah.
This could expedite the future of conference-led enforcement and all of that down the road, because it was really fast whenever all of these conferences got together. And props to the Big 12 over Brendan Sorsby.
Yeah.
The route was set about that going on. So because of that, they were able to get through. So quick one, everydayers. What do you think? September 19th mean more, or does it mean less after today? Let me know down in the comments and how you expect it to be. And thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Listen, the NCAA is obsolete. The SEC looks to be rising. The Big Ten looks to be rising. It's interesting to see which direction it goes, but we'll turn our attention over to football, at least for a little bit, and talk about 3 freshmen that are kind of showing out in camp. And don't forget, we take your questions in the 3rd segment. So after the next break, your comments until the end. This is the Rebel Squad, and I hope you enjoy it very much. Anyway, here we go. Stand by. All right, before the season kicks off, everybody's making predictions. Who wins the division? Who makes the playoffs? Who's lifting the trophy at season end? On Kalshi, America's #1 prediction market platform, you can trade those predictions in a live market. Will Ole Miss qualify for the playoffs this season? Right now, Ole Miss is trending at about 69%, meaning a $100 trade will be like $230. I think 45% or something like that. They'll clinch a playoff spot. On Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning there's no house. So as the probability changes, so you can buy in and out of your position, trade your draft pick, the game, and more on Kalshi. Download the Kalshi app and use the code LOCKEDON, all one word, and get $10 when you trade $10. Kalshi, Kalshi, trade on anything. 18 and up only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Kalshi products are not available in all jurisdictions. Prices, value, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory. And let me tell you about Poncho. If you're like me, you basically live in game day gear during football season, and you're going to want to check out Poncho's game day collection. It's one of those things where it's a performance shirt, but it doesn't look like a performance shirt. It just looks clean, sharp, and like something you would actually wear all day. Plus, you get to rep Ole Miss all day in style. The best part is it's built for real life. Super lightweight, breathable, comfortable enough that you can throw it on for a full day of tailgating in the Grove or sitting in the Vaught Hemingway Stadium or just hanging out watching the game with friends at the Tampa Rebel Club watch party without feeling the need to change. And if you grab your team shirt between now and September 7th, that's the day after the Louisville game, you're covered by Poncho's Natty Back Guarantee. If your team wins the College Football National Championship, Poncho will give you a full refund on your purchase, and you still get to keep the shirt. Listen, if fans ask you what's going on, just let them know. It's great having a shirt that's comfortable enough to go out in the outdoors, and also you can wear it out to a restaurant, or you can sit around in it all day and be perfectly fine. Whenever you find the right fit, that shirt just keeps getting worn and worn and worn. So go to ponchooutdoors.com/locked on and enter your email to get $10 off and free shipping on your first order. That's PONCHO outdoors.com/locked on. Head there, drop your email, and get $10 off and free shipping. And once you try one, you'll see exactly why I have a closet full of them. Hey, do us a favor, like, subscribe, and comment on this video. Subscribe to the podcast on whichever audio podcast you're listening to the replay on, and give it a 5-star review. Costs nothing, but it keeps all of this free. Get your daily Ole Miss fix completely ad-free by joining the Everydayer Club today. Start your 7-day free trial and get closer to your team without all of the interruptions. Click on the link down in the show notes or go to lockedonolemiss.supercast.com to claim your free trial. Also, check out the olemисshub.com, olemisshub.com for everything Locked On in one location, newsletter, the whole 9 yards, all of that stuff. So, Daylan, we're going to talk a little bit of practice for about 2 or 3 minutes. Real quick before we take the comments and talk to people that have been waiting so patiently to join us. But Pete Golding discussed 3 freshmen that he's pretty impressed with. They're all defensive linemen. He mentioned Jaden. What's his last name?
Curtis.
Curtis, yes. Yeah, just slipped my name. I literally just said it like 15 minutes ago. He is listed as the surprise of camp. He mentioned Landon Barnes, the rush in out of Duncanville, which if he's coming out of Duncanville, he replaced Colin Simmons. He kind of acts like him as well. And Carmelo Reed was an interesting name that I got. What is your take on this, Daylan? And is there any other names of the freshman class that we should probably pile on that?
Yeah, for me personally, I've always kind of noted when Pete brings up any players, particularly freshmen, that means they are actually doing something really good, because Pete's not just one to just name anybody just to be naming them. And I potentially mean that you could see some of those guys out there in meaningful and real playing moments this season. Not sure when or how, but it's not something that's been unnoticeable in Pete in doing, and putting young guys out there and giving them an opportunity to kind of shine in moments, especially when they're kind of surrounded by such a good group in different units that will allow them to have more moments to really learn and pick up their game in a real-time experience. So I think all 3 of those guys, from a perspective of me not, being able to see too much from the media viewing sessions throughout fall, but in terms of being able to know their stories a little bit, read the recruiting profiles, go and watch some film of them from their high school days. All 3 explosive young men, very team-oriented players, and I've heard great things from their coaches in high school as well about their leadership roles, but also guys that just have a drive to get better every single day. I kind of think about this same situation with Will Eccles and Cam Franklin a couple years ago when they arrived in 2024 and just, got, minutes in games that, the games are already over. But the benefits of being behind those guys that were with the group in 2024, you kind of saw it happen last year. Now they're the leaders. And so I expect these guys to reap what they sow and learn from the guys in front of them right now and grow from a mental and physical aspect, but also be able to put it to motion in some really meaningful moments this year. I think these guys, when you kind of talk about us from a defensive standpoint, a defensive line standpoint, not being tired in November or December and possibly January, those may be some of the guys that offer those roles to kind of help us stay healthy throughout the later parts of the season. So it's great to hear Pete talk about them. And of course, Dorian Barney was a guy mentioned throughout spring earlier in spring ball this year. I don't know really necessarily where his role will fit in the secondary. Wouldn't be surprised if he also got a little bit of a chance to play at times this season. But I think the secondary is a little bit set, but I still think he's a guy to not forget about for future years to come if you're an Ole Miss fan.
All right, so let's get into the comment section right after this break and that. So real question every day is, which freshman are you ready to see in this Louisville game? Who do you think has the biggest role against Louisville? Put that down in the comment section below. And remember, we're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube. A special hello to the insiders and everydayers who make the show what it is. Your team every day. When we come back, it is your show, your comments. We will start going through them for better or for worse, and we'll hang around as long as we can with that. Until then, stick around. So, running a business should not feel like you're trying to connect a bunch of systems that were never designed to work together in the first place. One app for accounting, another for inventory, another for sales, and somehow none of them talk to each other. That is where Odoo comes in. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software that brings every part of your business together in one powerful platform, from sales and accounting to inventory and marketing. Everything works in one place. Odoo is the one platform to manage, grow, and scale your business. The best organizations know that success just isn't about talent. It's about having everybody working towards the same goal, and that's true in sports just like it is in business. Stop me if you've heard this before. One thing that really stands out is how Ole Miss got everybody pulling in the same direction with the Keith Carter hire. It wasn't just one great player or coach. It was a coordinated effort across the entire organization that made it successful. Great organizations win because operations matter, and that is why you should get Odoo. Try for free at odoo.com/lockedon. That's odoo.com/lockedon. All right. So we're coming to the last segment. It's comments time. We'll see exactly what's up. We'll hang around as long as they're around. So if you have any comments, put them in the list and we'll try to get to them. All right, Shane Lucky says the SEC and the Big Ten is doing the right thing, shut down all NFL players from coming back to collegiate sports. Also, shut down NBA players, G League players, WNBA players. If you signed a professional contract, you cannot play college sports. That's the way it's been for 40 years, right?
That's right. Hard for me to disagree with that at all.
Yeah.
Chasing the MP, Daylan says 16-0 vote, which means that LSU caved, if we're going to be honest, because they originally didn't. The first time the vote got reported was 14 teams were completely locked in on doing this. One team was unsure and one team was really dug in, and the one that was really dug in was LSU. But Ole Miss was able to kind of figure out what happened. And Chase the MP says, that did block a basketball kid we just signed. Well, he didn't sign. He committed, but I'll take it. Yeah, if you're not eligible to play, you're not eligible to play, and now we can just get rid of it and move past that thing. I'm all for players' rights, but over the last 3 years, it's gone too far that way.
For sure. And by the way, I think Ole Miss has coaches that are going to play within the rules. Again, Pete Golding would have used this rule to his advantage if he saw it benefiting his team, but it didn't. And now the rules are, we have some guardrails. So, it blocks the basketball player, but it's worth it.
Yeah, thank goodness it didn't. LMBOJP says he graduated back in 2007. I was this close to coming back. Yeah, I hear you. You had a couple of years of eligibility. I think the age-based was part of the 5 for 5. I think you had to be below 24 or something like that. But yeah, I absolutely hear you when it comes to that. And Ryan Yawn says he thinks Lane only tried this just to troll Ole Miss when, in fact, nobody from Ole Miss even cared. Ole Miss, I think they cared about Daquan Wright. I think they literally cared about that. I don't think they cared necessarily about Xavion because we heard the rumors about fitness and all of that. Mm-hmm. But I think they cared about Daquan and it not working. That's one thing. But I don't think that he did this to troll it. I think they did it because he doesn't like his roster. He sees roster holes. He went and got Xavion Harris knowing that he had a problem with fitness because he has three true freshmen on the defensive line. And that's the one position where you can't have three true freshmen. Right, Daylan?
Right.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I wonder what, eventually made them kind of come around and cave to the idea that, we probably should go in the other way for our vote. But also my mind kind of boggles to two things. Number one, if you are Daquan Wright, where do you now go in your career? Like I'm genuinely like curious about that. Like do NFL GMs and teams, do they kind of look at this and say, okay, we don't ever want to get this guy back in the league, or what's the next step for guys like that end up doing this? And I'm also really happy, like I mentioned this in the first make, that basketball was brought into this. Like I think we talk. College football has so much of the needle thread. Like I remember when USC and Oregon joined the Big Ten, and we're like, okay, I personally thought when teams do that, especially from a football standpoint, it should only be for football, because now you're affecting, the women's soccer and volleyball and all these other leagues. And I think it was so important that they mentioned basketball in this statement, because just because this thing is going on in football too doesn't mean it's not happening in other sports. And the needle needed to be moved in college basketball too, because it's still a big money revenue. And I get it's not the same thing as football, but it's something that is also very important. And I honestly could say in a position like this, college basketball is in a much bigger mess than college football is in terms of this particular settlement. And so I'm glad they got it figured out. And also on that standpoint, I wonder what Will Wade does moving forward with his group of players, which is barely any as it is. But now he's really going to have to regroup, try to move things over the next couple months before the season starts for him.
Yeah, it should be pretty good. Ryan Yawn says he will be laughing when they go 7-5. I think there's a chance they put up a 4 or a 5, because I think that any adversity, they're just going to shut down. It's going to look like the end of 2022 for Ole Miss.
Yeah, the back half of their schedule looks really loaded from what I remember. I know the front half isn't. I mean, you have Clemson and Ole Miss, which, we'll see. I expect them to beat Clemson. I'd be pretty surprised, especially with the message Lane kind of sent to the conference, that I don't know how confident he is in his roster, and are they really going to be clicking on all cylinders with all that new movement? On the coaching staff, the roster by week 3. So I'd oh man, 7-5 would be really, that would be a really big disappointment, because look, even when they were bringing in Daquan, even before they were going to bring in Daquan and Xavion Harris, how much do we think they were spending on their roster? At least probably close to $50 million at that point, if not over. So a lot of pressure.
I've heard they were Lubbock taxed a little bit too. They had to overpay some positions to win. But the first part of the talent is there. The problem is it's not spread out yet. They haven't built the roster. So you have talent. So Chase the MP says this is just like when they blocked that kid that was going to Alabama last year. He's talking about Charles Bediako for playing in the G League. I'm glad the G League's on the list. I'm glad the WNBA is on the list. I'm glad the NBA is on the list. Heck, I'm glad the CFL's on the list, because there's other professional leagues and all that. This is a 100% win, Daylan.
Yeah, it is. We've talked about this for so many years, written about it, listened to other people talk about it. It was seemingly already becoming a professional sports type environment, anyways, with NIL and this kind of free agency market with quotation marks around it, obviously. And with this variable, you kind of drew the line really at what even is college football or college athletics anymore if we really proceed with things like this, and kind of removes the litigation of it's already hard for high school kids to be recruited and be placed at a top level nowadays because of the transfer portal. But it would make it increasingly more harder for them if this was something that seemingly just got passed and allow guys to go back down. So I'm happy for the move for a lot of different reasons, and I'm really glad that the Big Ten kind of put their thing together and the SEC kind of came together with it very quickly as well.
Yeah, and I'm going to put something up right now that's probably going to upset some people, but this is a comment, and, I have to be fair. Tulane has been the flagship football school of the state of Louisiana for 5 or 6 years, and part of it makes me go, okay, that's whatever. And then you think about, well, they have made the playoff recently, and then they went to the Cotton Bowl and beat USC like 5 years ago. The 2020s has been the decade of the green wave.
Yeah, I guess in a way it has. I mean, it's yeah. It's
crazy,
look,
right?
Yeah, they have. I mean, LSU won that championship in January of 2020, but since then, it really has been more success for Tulane, whatever their conference is. That's just is what it is.
Anything that happened before COVID doesn't count.
Yeah,
doesn't
that's
matter.
A dead era at this point.
It's one of you might as well be talking about the 50s at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
So if it's like 2021 and beyond, okay. But for that, no. We got one here that says Low Standard University with the Louisiana spelling. King on the Throne. If Keywan isn't effective this year, I hope we don't force it and play other backs. Keywan's going to be fine. Keywan's going to be fantastic. Focus on Louisville, boys. Lane living rent-free in y'all's heads. We are focused on Louisville. We're just taking a few minutes to laugh at you. That's the difference.
We're not playing in the game either.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not playing in the game. We're just talking. That's what we're meant to do here.
Okay, since he brought up the fact that we need to focus on playing Louisville, I'm going to ask a question. Daylan, what was your 40 time? At the very peak, what was your 40 time?
Oh gosh.
Uh-huh.
I have no idea. Probably 5 flat, maybe 5.1.
Yeah, I was about 5.1. What about you, Tyler?
Maybe 4.7, 4.8. Definitely wasn't the fastest. I mean, for a receiver though, that's not very fast. But the last thing I want to mention about LSU, unless there's another comment or whatever, I hope like one of us three, or maybe you, Steven, can get on with Matt Moscona. I don't know what your relationship is with him, what it's like, but I'm genuinely curious what the expectations are for this team because. They better make the playoffs at least. And I'm very curious if they're going to spin that a certain type. Like I want to know before the season, not towards the end where they can kind of spin it whatever way. Hopefully they stay healthy and all those great things. But honestly, like as an outsider, how can you not expect them to win a couple playoff games with the, investments they've made in their roster?
Yeah. But just whenever you tell the team that they're not good enough, and then it doesn't work, and all of a sudden you tell them they are good enough, that's going to be a problem. It always is. And Moscona, I will have him on LSU week, the 17th. Yeah. I will have Moscona on, and it'll be interesting. He'll be dead set sure that LSU is going to win, and I'll be dead set sure that Ole Miss is going to win. And it should be pretty interesting indeed. Alpha Shane says, so Steven thinks LSU is a 4-win team. No, I said LSU could be a 4-win team. This is the type of stuff that blows up a roster. Texas signed Cole Hudson. Yep, get him out of there. Yep, he signed a pro contract. Yeah. This is the thing that everybody doesn't really know about me. I'm not playing the homer card on this one. If there is a professional athlete on Ole Miss's roster, get them out. They don't need to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want any professionals playing college. The Bediako thing was miserable to me. All of that stuff. I wanted this to be college football. So if you violated those rules, you got to go. That's the way it is. Let's see. It ain't over yet, but for now it feels good. It's nice to get an injunction win or something, a rule win, something out of the football sphere win, because there's been so many losses over 3 years. It's like every time one of these came up, it felt like football lost. So let's see what else we got. Correct me if I'm wrong, but would they not have to kick somebody off the roster if they were to get those players? The rumor is 6 players for LSU were going to be cut off because they had so many lined up through a scheme to get this done that they were going to have to trim on the 105. And it's possible. The way you get rid of players is crazy.
Yeah, especially nowadays, it's very cutthroat. So, I mean, and we talked about, I think Daylan talked about, the dynamic, what Daquan and Trey Green would have been like just throwing him in there. But, I mean, you think about the walk-on guys or the guys that aren't really in the national spotlight that have been there since winter workouts and doing everything they've been asked for. Just all of a sudden, 2 weeks before the season, your spot's gone.
And it's also funny, Daylan, on September 19th, Ole Miss might be the most cheered for team in United States history. It's literally just LSU fans hoping LSU wins that game, and the rest of the country is 100% going for Ole Miss.
Yeah, well, Ole Miss kind of did become, I guess everyone's kind of saying, America's team throughout the postseason last year, and trickling down to what they've done this year. I think a lot of people are still kind of on that wagon of it. I think it's going to be a fun game, and obviously there are going to be a lot of emotions and storylines for it. But just from a football standpoint, these are both. Both teams have really good players, and I think it's going to be a really good football game, and I'm just excited to see the football brand of it because I want to see what Pete does against the Lane Kiffin, Charlie Wise Jr. offense in real time. I think we've seen it before, and I really want to see now from this perspective of, okay, obviously Lane was here. He knows what Trinidad is good at and what he does really good. How do they scheme against that if you're Blake Baker? But from, Pete's perspective, how do you, scheme against Sam Levitt and what LSU has offensively now? So I'm really excited for the game aspect of it too. Like, we're talking about the storylines, but the game aspect is very exciting too.
Yeah, it should be interesting. By the way, David Gibson says LSU may argue the language of this rule is these players did not choose to leave college to pursue their careers. Well, this ruling does not punish players. Those players can be eligible to play college football, can come back. They just can't play in the SEC or the Big Ten. And the people that would be punished is the coaches that would have recruited them or the schools that brought them in, not the players. It's one of those things that the coaches are going crazy.
Right.
Dayton Crab says, gotta love seeing LSU fans in shambles. That's hilarious. Hey, we got a Hell State. I'm sure they're probably enjoying tonight as well. Let's see. Somebody, you a Mississippi State fan on the Ole Miss channel? That's how down bad you are. That's right. Ole Miss Chris, hashtag 4-win watch. Let's see. Lane and Wade, the true most grimy coaches in D1 basketball and baseball. Didn't Kim Mulkey kick a Ukraine player off the team and bring in a Russian player today?
Yes. Yeah. That's been the storyline. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. It's like Jay Johnson sits around going, what is going on? I just want to coach ball. What is happening? And you honestly tell me this wasn't the orchestrated plan when you hire Will Wade and go get Rick Stansberry and other coaches you fired? I mean, come on. Let's see. No, son, I'm a Vols. I just root for State. Okay.
Interesting. Cool dynamic.
Yeah. LSU fans live in 2019. Well, they should because, yeah, that was a pretty good year for them. This dude in the middle looks like my ex-girlfriend's new girlfriend. Wow. Good job, Tyler.
I mean,
that's a first. Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy.
Thanks, Matt.
Let's see. David Gray says LSU was checkmated by the SEC, and we got one more. Is this something that LSU can take to the court and challenge? And if so, do you think they would? No, LSU voted for it. They voted for this to be on the books. And the reason they voted for it is because they were informed that if they challenged it, they would not be able to win. So it was a losing fight, and you don't want to jeopardize your membership in the Southeastern Conference because, wealthy or not, that $75 million check means something. And Tulane would crawl to Birmingham to accept that invitation. So, and yes, there is a measure of being careful about what is going on. But anyway, last thoughts, guys. Tyler, tell me what's going on.
Yeah, kind of last thought involves that last comment and then what David Gibson said about the language, the word choose. Because that was one of the things yesterday when I read that statement. I'm like, ooh, that looks like, why would they say that word? Because, most of those guys in the class of 22 obviously didn't really choose that route. So, no, I don't expect – I maybe initially thought that LSU could challenge things, but no, they voted for it. So I think it's a done deal. And overall, it's, the entire collegiate athletic world should be celebrating, even LSU fans. I know it doesn't – obviously they were expecting a depth upgrade and overall roster upgrade, but they should be in favor of this, in my opinion.
What you got, Daylan?
I thought it was interesting that a few Ole Miss players, Will Eccles, Centurion Perkins, and amongst others, kind of made some statements on their Instagram yesterday about Xavier Harris going to LSU. Even if it obviously looks like it's that guy. Yeah, it's not going to happen at this point. Just know that these Ole Miss players are taking all this personal, and they've put in a lot of work to bring back something to Ole Miss that hasn't been done in a very long time. And I think it's a group of guys that feel like they have nothing to lose this season and are going to give it all on the field this year. So I think it's a weird position, but I think honestly this is going to motivate those guys in a weird way.
Man, these guys are coping hard. If he thinks, it's coping so hard. Oh, poor things. I feel a little bit bad for them, honestly. Anyway, thank you guys for stopping by, and next week we'll get back together for the Rebel Squad. Thank you so much, and y'all have a good day.
You too.
All right. Here we go. Here's the deal, every day. Subscribe, hit the bell right now. About 12 days to Nashville, I think, and we're going to cover every word that comes out of the Manning Center. Before you go, give me a score in that game. Give me a score, Ole Miss and Louisville. What do you think it's going to look like? And as always, tell me in the comments what you're seeing, because everydayers, you're usually ahead of the national media on this type of stuff. You're not the smartest audience in all of ball for no reason. Today, we got to, I guess, have a little bit of LSU tears, and their scheme blew up in their face, and it was sad, and it was happy. And I hope they can bounce back with what's going on, and they're going to be okay, because if not, they're looking square at a 4-win season. And we'll see whenever they come out against Clemson if they're going to be able to do it, because if they lose to Clemson, it's Katie bar the door. So if you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Locked On Ole Miss ad free, plus members only Discord access and more. Head to lockedonolemmiss.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we're going to send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, you make sure you make the second listen either Locked On SEC, Locked On College Football, Locked On Bets. Subscribe, hit the bell, drop the comment. Enjoy the LSU tears that's just a-flowing, and it's hilarious, and we will see you tomorrow, everydayers. Take care, and of course, hotty toddy.